So let me just get this recording starting. Let me see. Okay, it has started. In this episode of Madhouse, we speak to Jackie Namara, Rukare, a marketing professional, about the power of marketing and how she uses her superpowers to help businesses engage with customers and clients. So hi Jackie, how are you? We've started recording.
I'm very well, Gabriel. How are you?
I'm okay. So let's just start. For those who don't know you, just introduce yourself, and your superpowers and things like that.
Okay, I have vision. Since lately, there have been all these remakes of all the DC and Marvel comic
Films.
heroes.
Yeah.
I'm imagining myself as some sort of hybrid between Wonder Woman and a couple of those others when you say superpowers. But I'm Jackie Namara Rukare.
Yeah.
I'm a marketing professional. Most of my career has been spent in marketing. So I'm a chartered marketer and a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Marketing.
Okay.
And I've been privileged to work across a range of industries and companies.
Yeah.
So, starting out as a management trainee in Unilever, then working my way through to do alcoholic beverages with Uganda Breweries, which is part of the Diageo group. And then in telecoms with Airtel, when it was still called Celtel, and Vodafone.
Okay.
And most of my career was spent in financial services with Stanbic Bank.
Oh, nice.
Currently, I operate and own my own consulting firm called Guru Consult, where we do help medium-sized businesses to basically see how they can leverage and use marketing to grow profitably and sustainably. So we provide training services, we provide strategy development and support for implementation. And I'm privileged to work with a group or a network of other specialists. So even if you're coming to me for one thing, because I'm plugged into the Business Networks International organization, we have, I'm part of the Sunrise chapter in Uganda. So I work with about 12, a 12, if you like, a man or woman group, which is other business owners, and together we can put together a comprehensive package for a business.
Okay.
So that's what I'm doing professionally. I am really passionate about developing the next generation of professional marketers, and I emphasize the word professional. So just like you wouldn't go to a doctor who is not qualified and certified to get treatment, we also want businesses and organizations to look for, professional marketers to help them with their business. So I do work with the Uganda Marketers Society. I sit on the advisory council as a representative of the Chartered Institute of Marketing to make sure that we are grooming the next generation and providing ongoing support for practicing marketers in Uganda. And then with Project Girls for Girls, which is mentoring women and young ladies into positions of leadership, getting them to stand up and
that's nice.
What else? I'm involved in Rotary International. I'm a young Rotarian with the Rotary Club of Kitante.
I recently you're the chairman these days.
Yes, so I'm president. I have
president. That's what they're called, right? Presidents.
Yes, the only one time I can claim to be a president, I guess. The term is about to come to an end. We are very strict with term limits, so you get 1 year and the torch. So that will run until June of this year. Then I hand over to the incoming president. And I am also passionate about diabetes, particularly diabetes in children. So we have a support group called Sugar Cubes, which we started about 10 years ago. And basically what we do is provide advocacy and education services for families living with diabetes, because kids don't can't articulate for themselves. And therefore we need families and in any other well-wishers to be able to stand up and advocate for their rights, especially health rights, in the diagnosis, treatment and care of diabetes. So that's that's me in a nutshell.
You take the record for the longest intro like Madhouse Podcast history. Awesome. There's something you said, and I really wanted to ask. I wanted to ask about. You said professional marketer, and I wanted to know what exactly that means. Like the difference between like normal marketer and like the pro marketer. Like, is there like subtle differences, or is there like a very big difference?
Yes. If I can draw an analogy from sport, say boxing. Yes. You can be an amateur boxer, or you can be a professional boxer.
Okay.
So at some level, all of us are amateur marketers. So we all have some ideas, some thoughts about what we can do to get a product known in the market. Those of us who are really creative, you can even create ads. And so there's that level of sort of intrinsic marketing capability in everybody. But the reason I emphasize professional is because now this is someone who is trained and certified, and ideally knows what they are doing in regards to marketing. We tend to see the outputs of marketing. So people see ad campaigns, they see sponsorships, they see events, but they don't see the data analysis, they don't see the strategy, they don't see all the planning that goes on behind the scenes to what you see in public and what we are exposed to. And now we've taken that idea a bit further. So I think in 2016, the Chartered Institute of Marketing actually came up with a set of capabilities and competencies that make up what you would call a professional marketer. So it's centered around having a core set, then you have technical capabilities, and now because you're also managing results through people, we've also added some behavior competencies. So it's not enough to just put your technical craft. You also need to work with teams. You need to be able to collaborate. You need to be able to influence. You need to be able to negotiate. You need to be able to work across different cultures and markets and support, diversity and all that we see coming onto the agenda. And of course, now the big ticket thing that is the buzzword everywhere. How does all of that link into the ESG agenda in terms of environmental, social, and governance issues? So that's why I say professional. And what the Uganda Marketers Society is doing is trying to get to the same level that we see with, say, the accounting profession. Where you actually start to provide a list of certified professional marketers. So when someone is advertising and looking for people to work in marketing, you don't just pick anybody. Pick somebody, even if they're not quite there yet, but at least pick somebody who is on the journey to becoming a true marketing professional.
That's all. So like for my listeners, it's basically a marketer with superpowers. Like with that extra sauce, like just that's because when you said pro boxer, because pro boxers are normal boxers, but they have that extra thing going on. Especially when you said like the pro boxer knows how to negotiate his contracts, pro boxer knows how to market himself and leverage other opportunities around boxing. So I think it's just that extra, like almost like extra effort on top of just like normal old amateur marketing that we all know, but then just adding this other extra layer, which I think is very intriguing. So I wanted to know, how did you get into marketing? Like, how did this all start? Like, were you like born and you're like, guys, I am going to try to get people to connect with people's products and ideas, and like, or was it a gradual thing?
A lot of people are shocked when I say I come into marketing by accident. So I was actually doing my MBA, and I part of the courses that you must do that are mandatory. You have to do marketing, and because coincidentally my bachelor's degree was in social science, and one of the subjects that I had taken was sociology. Somehow the penny dropped for me, and I began to the connections between what marketing does and what I had studied in sociology around understanding human behavior. So I was intrigued, and I think being in a class where full-time students like myself were the minority. So this was a very business, should I say, oriented program. So most of the students were people who were working full-time, and so our class in the evening. And for me, it was really I can say eye-opening in the sense that whatever we were learning in terms of theory and concepts and frameworks, you would get a live application by people saying, no, okay, that's all very well and good. That's what that person thought when they came up with this theory, but this is the reality of how we've tried that out in our business and it hasn't worked for the following reasons. And so that really got me, I began thinking, maybe this is something I could get into. So my interest was sort of piqued in during the MBA program. And as I was completing the program, a friend of mine who had joined Unilever Uganda said, oh, you know what, they're looking for management trainees. Please send me your paperwork. So once I returned, within a month or so of returning, I was sitting interviews and I was recruited with Unilever, and as they say, the rest is history.
Nice.
So that's how I got into marketing.
So
it wasn't a conscious decision, it was just a happy coincidence.
And also like how you connected like your sociology background to business and saying, oh wait, these two things can live in the world of like marketing.
Yes.
Like just give you again like those superpowers. I'm very I mean, like, this is the Creative Asylum podcast, so like the conversations about like creativity and like problem solving. I'm very fascinated to find out like just I wish you could just share like maybe 2 short stories, but like just understanding like from your perspective, like where you see where marketing either has really gone south or like really just like not really solve the problem as intended, and then another side where like the ability to problem solve with marketing to actually achieve business goals or organizational agendas and goals, and like how you experienced with both, and like what you think made going forward, like what you think the problems were in the both scenarios.
Okay, so I'll probably start with something that didn't work out. So I had been given an assignment to go and do a market assessment of a particular product, which was a combination of a bar soap and washing powder all in one. And the idea was that our typical washing habits are that we put a washing powder. We are not very good at following the instruction to soak first for a period of time. So people tend to start washing immediately. And then for the things that are difficult to remove, then they apply a piece of bar soap and try and add additional soap and wash that out. Now the science for most of the washing powders now is that they have ingredients. Some of them use enzymes, some of them use other chemicals, and the whole point of soaking is to get the enzymes to draw the dirt out of the fibers in the cloth so that you don't have to do a lot of work. You don't have to do a lot of work, so the work gets done.
I understand.
So
that's
this
new.
particular So this particular product was basically a bar, like a single piece of a bar soap, but it was unique in the sense that it had both washing powder and bar soap built into one. So on paper, it looked like a really good idea. I mean, who wouldn't want to have this value in the one product? So I spent time in Masindi for about maybe 2 months, just going around and observing how people wash their clothes, handing out samples, and seeing how that worked. And it was interesting that while the customers said, this is a really good idea, but thanks, but no thanks. I still need my washing powder and my bar soap separate. Why? Because the bar soap is multi-purpose. I can wash clothes, I can wash dishes, I can bathe with it, I can clean with it. If you put the two things together, then I will not be able to do, for example, the bathing. That will be too harsh for my skin. So I'm going to lose functionality because it's a combined product. And sort of I came back and wrote my report and said, look, it's it's like it seems like a good idea, but the customers' habits around washing clothes and cleaning their homes are basically telling us that this is not something that will work for Uganda. And at the time, the leadership felt very strongly that this, it has worked elsewhere in the world in similar conditions like Uganda. So they went and imported a whole load of this stuff. And of course, it didn't move. It was a total flop. So I think sometimes for creativity, we have to remove our egos and ourselves and create for the customer. And the one thing I've not seen happening enough, maybe in our Ugandan context, is learning how to co-create with our customers. We tend to push things at them instead of creating with them.
I understand.
That's not the norm. I will give you the example of maybe people who are what I would consider to be the perfect co-creators. Someone who is a makeup artist. When I sit in front of the mirror, we have a discussion. I tell you, this is the function I'm going to attend. This is the kind of look that I'm going for. Maybe I have attended this function before. So assuming you're an MC or somebody like that, who people see on a regular basis, you have to have a series of different looks to cater to the function, the audience. Is it going to be telecast live? Is it going to be recorded? How long do I need to be on stage? How hot is it going to be? All those things. And you have this discussion. And for most, if you're dealing with a really professional makeup artist, they will actually come and encourage you to try out several looks before you decide what you want to do for that particular event. So that's like a perfect co-creation around creativity, where there's a give and take between the service provider and the client or the customer. Now, we don't see that happening mainstream in business generally. We normally say, hey, customer, I hear you. I know this is what you want, but this is what I've got. So take it or leave it.
And I guess
and I think so we need to work backwards and say, okay, we've gone out, we've had a chat, we've understood your needs. Internally, we have the capability to reproduce or to produce for you this product or service, and then test it out and see what works and doesn't work. I think Starbucks is another company that does a lot of seasonal co-creation. So around things like Thanksgiving, Christmas, I don't know, Halloween and whatnot, they come up with special limited edition coffees, and these are not user generated. So there's always this competition for people to come up with different combinations of flavors. And if in the what they call tasting, the ones that are the winners are actually then replicated throughout their stores, and you get credit as the customer who suggested it, that this particular, like the pumpkin spice latte is one of those which came out of one of these user generated co-creation efforts, and has since become a staple. So every year around Halloween, Thanksgiving, there's that period when they will serve that particular drink.
So like almost like what maybe like Cafe Javas tries to do with like its customers, trying to like really like co-create with them, as you're saying, of like really listening to the customer and saying, I think we're going to make something tailored to your needs, as compared to like when they did that big on breakfast thing and they realized a lot of people come to work really late and they haven't eaten breakfast, and like saying, okay, what if we did something that tailors to people's breakfasts? But I get what you're saying when you say that like a lot of things feel forced and you're like, hey, I didn't ask for that, and it's like, this is what I have. And it's like the businesses and the service providers like live in a bubble and then just come and say, here, it's that this is what is good for you, but you're like, I'm not sure, it's not what I is so what I asked for.
In pay TV services where you have a fixed bouquet. So there are different tiers or different levels that you can subscribe to. But that entire model has now been completely disrupted by the Netflixes of this world, Amazon Prime Videos, the Hulu, and the CWs, because then I get to pick and choose what I like. And because the companies which did a lot of digital innovation on the back end, their artificial intelligence and machine learning capability. I mean, once you've watched something or you've bought something, say, off Amazon, that algorithm just probably knows
Sends
you
you
better than
another
you know.
one.
So,
Yeah. Okay.
yes.
Yeah.
So it just keeps you constantly fed or provided with all these cues to buy, but it is based on what you have expressed interest in. So that's like the perfect example of listening to the customer and actually giving them more of what they want,
Yeah.
as opposed to and forcing them to take what you have because that's what you want to sell.
Okay. I understand. Okay.
So think about if you went, how good would life be if I could go to a bank and create my own hybrid product?
Okay. Or your own version of a bank account
Yes,
that
I
suits
create
your
my own
needs.
version. So you give me a plug and play kind of environment. So you
Yeah.
give me a menu and I pick and choose the things that I want. I'm not going to squibble about the price. Why? Because it's what I want. Now, if it's going to come to at a premium, but it is truly what I want, that doesn't even occur to me. Price is not an issue when you're creating value.
Yeah.
And I think creativity needs to move from when we say creative, especially in the marketing sense, people think about ads.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Creativity is more than that. It's about being able to analyze data. It's about being able to figure out what your customers want and deliver an experience that they're looking for. So it's a much broader, I think it needs to be applied to a much broader spectrum as opposed to just the typical application.
Yeah. We might have just given banks the best business idea ever. The bank you walk into and you can cook your own bank account based on your needs. And if any bank is listening, they should just like apply and go and win.
Copyright please comes to me.
Everything comes Jackie Namara, royalties, I don't know, all those things. I wanted to know now that as a success story, because you just shared the story with the soap, but I wanted to share in your experiences, like where you have actually applied and it has actually where you're saying you're actually listening and like and you've seen like the impact of actually listening to a customers.
Two things kind of jump out at me. One was, I think for me, the biggest one was when we handled the initial public offer for Stanbic Bank, opening up shares to retail investors.
Okay.
Typically, when a Ugandan thinks about an asset, they think about animals, they think about land, they think about some sort of building. Now, trying to convince somebody to hand over their hard-earned cash for this paper intangible thing called a share.
Yes.
Yeah, it was quite the uphill task. But we said, look, the only way that we can demonstrate value is to convince them that there is another way that you can generate and create wealth with something which is not a physical sort of tangible thing that you can see, touch, and feel, that will still deliver value and perhaps even much better value than what you're familiar with. So we had to go around the country explaining what shares were. This was done in conjunction with the Uganda Securities Exchange and the Capital Markets Authority, because there's that investor education must come before you do an IPO.
Okay.
But it was also a fantastic opportunity for us to expose the country to what the brand stood for. So what are you actually buying? When you put your money down for a share, you see the branches, you see the ATMs, you see our staff, but what is it that you're actually buying into? And at that particular time, we were saying, look, you're buying into an institution that is about helping you to grow your dreams, whether it's at a personal level or at a business level, and then scale that to country. And because we are part of a group, we can also help you realize dreams at a continent level or even a global level, because on the back end of that, at group level, there was the international Chinese ICBC, a Chinese bank, had bought shares group, and so now there was this access to China. So we had to package that entire story and sell it and say, come buy our shares. Now that was fantastic, because as we went on the road and began to understand what people needed in terms of information, we kept tweaking and adjusting the message to suit what retail and institutional investors were looking for. So I think to this date, I don't think there's been any other IPO that has been oversubscribed to the level. I think we were almost over 250% subscribed when we went to that. So that's that for me is an example of where you take the creativity just beyond advertising messages and really to the heart of what do we want. We want to sell you a way that you can have a piece of a very profitable organization, which doesn't just support you, but it supports the whole country. In some way. So you're connected to this much bigger picture. So I'm a shareholder and proud to be one, because I know that the institution that I've invested in is not just giving me a dividend, but I also get to see how they impact lives. And that's something that's important to me as an investor. The other one I can think of is one that came much earlier in my career when I was with the Unilever. We launched Royco onto the market. And that was my first big project, where you're told, okay, here's this product. We want Ugandans to embrace it. And you're thinking, okay, this is my do or die project. How well I survive in this organization depends on the success of...
Since you're a superhero, that's your origin story.
Exactly. But it was a fantastic experience, because we first went and spent time just understanding how do people cook their meals. And we looked at the broad spectrum, from someone in their home to people who are in restaurants, and a whole spectrum of restaurants, from what we call toning, where it's in a back alley somewhere and you're sitting on a bench. But that can be some of the tastiest food that you'll ever have. So we looked at a broad spectrum of home cooks and, if you like, commercial cooks cooking in a variety of situations. And then in that we said, okay, so where can we get the most believability? Because if I go and launch this with executive chefs in 3- and 5-star hotels, no one is ever going to take it up. So we said, okay, when people don't eat at home, and it's not in a fancy restaurant, where do they eat? And it turned out most people were eating in markets, because it's accessible, it's quick, it's convenient. So we said, okay, the people who are going to help us to push the credibility of this product are the ladies who in the market. So that became our core audience that we were selling to. And so we went across the country, and we had a series of road shows that provided an edutainment format. And it was the thing was a very simple one. We would go to the market ladies and say, okay, in this market, who is recognized as the best cook? And so we would say, okay, we want you to give us beans. Give us a typical bean dish, and then we would do before Royco and after Royco. And we would do a blind test. So you'd call people up from the audience and tell them, okay, test this. This is sample 1. Tell us what you think about it. Then here is sample 2. And in all those tests, Royco was always the one that tested better than the one without Royco. Now, and because it was not us who had cooked the food, it was food which was coming from someone who was recognized in the location. And they could see that nothing had been added beforehand, and then they could see when we add, this is how it transforms. There was that credibility and believability. And then once we had done that, whoever was in the audience would then get a small, like a couple of sachets to go try this out at home. Now they knew how to apply it. And then we would go and sell into the nearby outlets. So your kiosks, your dukas, whatever retail outlets where people frequently purchase their day-to-day commodities, we would make sure we sold in some initial stock. And then we would move to the distributor servicing that particular area and say, look, we've just created for you a whole bunch of demand. Place an initial order of X amount of units to test, because now you will have people coming asking for the product, because we've gone and proved that it's a product that works. So that one was a good one, about sort of first getting out there and understanding what's going on, and then thinking, how do we create a believable solution that will actually bring in sales? Because it's one thing you can have a very fantastic execution, but it doesn't generate any sales for you. And so the budget that we had, so I think for the first 2 years or so, Royco didn't have any money on radio or television. It was in road shows, stocking up the trade, distribution chain, and doing some merchandising and shop painting. That was it, because that's all the money that there was. But that's how that brand was built to what you now see today.
Okay, that's pretty interesting. That's very interesting. So also, as we're coming to the close of the podcast, coming to the end, the grand finale battle between Jackie and the evil warlord. Yeah, I think I'm just gonna keep this superhero theme. I think your intro, I'm gonna change the music to like some like Avengers like theme music.
Justice League, kind of thing. Okay.
Yeah, I'm just like in this episode of the Madhouse, turn to turn, like something like that. Anyway, the last thing that I usually ask every guest before we end the podcast is that in all the cool things that you've been up to and all the amazing marketing projects you've been up to and like the things you've been up to, what's the life lesson, like one life lesson that you want to leave the listeners with that you think they can do without in case we have bored them for the past like 40 minutes? Yeah, like at least they'll skip to the end and be like, yeah, at least Jackie taught us to give us a piece of like wisdom or like insight, but something that you've learned from all your years in an experience in the marketing world. Yeah.
Okay, so I would say don't be afraid to experiment, especially when you're younger.
Yeah.
I know my dad used to despair every time I'd come and say, "Hi, Dad, I just wanted to let you know I'm shifting, I'm moving to another company." And he's like, "What's wrong with you? Why can't you settle in one place?" Because earlier in my career, my average lifespan was about 2.5 years before I would move to another company.
Oh, all right.
And at the time, I didn't understand how that would serve me later in life. For me, it was always about where can I go and test myself out? Where can I go and push myself a little bit further?
Yeah.
So it was maybe more of a subconscious thing and not so much of a conscious thing, but that's something which I would say take the time earlier in your career to experiment with different organizations, different assignments. Don't be afraid to try out new things, because that's how you will learn what you're passionate about and what makes it, I guess, what makes you tick maybe at a career level, but also it will serve you later in life, because now when I look at the networks that I built by working in all those different places, I have a network of former colleagues that are now also quite spread out.
Yeah.
And therefore it provides, I think, for a much more enriched experience, not just in the workplace, but also in life.
Yeah.
And that's something I would encourage people, try out new things.
Yeah.
And sometimes it doesn't have to be even work related. You might be growing in career, but you feel like you're missing something in your life. So it might be that you've always taken photographs, for example.
Yes.
There's no reason why you can't go and do like a photography course, and having access to digital platforms and going online. There's so many free or subsidized courses that are available for you to actually go and experiment with this natural, if you like, interest you have in a particular area. And it's really just to explore whether this is something you could turn into a business opportunity or whether it's just something you want to do for your own enjoyment.
Yeah. I get.
So just don't be afraid to experiment. And it's easier to experiment if in work, because then you probably won't have the obligations of family and children and expenses that come with growing up. And so you have a lot more, I think, disposable income to play with a lot of things. So be bold and courageous and try stuff out.
Okay, that's nice. Awesome. Thank you so much for chatting with us, hanging out. I think we should do more of these. I think we'll do like a marketing masterclass. Yeah.
Anytime.
How to be a superhero. Like, I think that's what we call it. That's like, I'm already learning some clever tricks, catchphrase. How to be a superhero. I think that's what we call it. But thank you so much, Jackie, for your time. I think this is the end of the podcast. It's been nice catching up. I guess we'll link up at some point.